Hi, my name is Ashley Pierce, and I am a creative photographer based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've recently started offering education services to fellow photographers, and I started this series in the hopes to help newbie photographers learn the steps that go into starting a photography business in the actual order that you need to do them in. Because doing my research back in the past when I was starting this myself, I found all the resources in all the wrong orders, and oftentimes the resources were missing very important information that I needed to know. So after being completely self-taught, making a lot of mistakes, I decided to make this series to keep things simple to help people like me back then not pull their hair out in the process of starting their business. So my next lesson is on SEO. This video is going to go over the most important things you need to know about SEO when it comes to being a photographer, and then I will have an additional video that goes into more of the nitty-gritty components that you need to know if you're wanting to get super serious about SEO with your company. And you can watch that by subscribing to my personal Patreon, and the link will be down below this video. So to start with, in case you don't know what SEO is, SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. Basically, that's just a fancy word for can people find you on Google, because most people Google, but Bing and other search engines like that. It's very important for businesses to establish a strong online presence, especially at the very beginning, because SEO is very slow. It takes a long time for you to establish your website and for Google or whatever other search engine to accept you as an established business, so that they will rank you high and ultimately show you to people who are searching for keywords in your industry. SEO basically improves your visibility to attract more potential clients. And I'd like to go more into what I meant by it takes a long time to build it up. So it does take a long time to build up your SEO, but once you do, it is very difficult for your competitors to catch up to you. So it's a long con type thing. I started my website way before I actually started offering professional services, and I think that was a super smart way to go about it, and that is why this is so early on in the list of things to do to start a photography business in this series. So I could have talked about branding or some other topic now, and you technically could have done that before working on your SEO, but because of that long duration of time that it takes to build it up, I wanted you to go ahead and at least get the bare minimum established, so that when you start actually offering services down the line, Google will already recognize you and at least place you on the first couple of pages on the search for your keywords. And so, next point, most people Google when searching for services. So I know majority of people nowadays have social media, and I think that social media has a great part to play when it comes to photography, especially because it's a visual app. It's all about videos and photos, and as photographers, we want people to see those visuals. So it is great. It's like a kind of a pseudo portfolio. I think you should have a portfolio, but it's also a great way to showcase your work. But it's not very searchable. They're working on it. I know that hashtags have now become more like a way to search instead of just a way to click a thing and then scroll endlessly through pictures. And they're working on some other ways to sort images. But for the most part, if you are looking on Instagram, unless it is randomly popping up in your algorithm, you're probably not seeing or you're not scratching the surface of all the services that you could find on that app. Same thing with Facebook. I think Facebook's a lot better at being searchable, but it's still lacking. Google is the king of search terms. So you really want to get your website's search words established and be intentional with those so that when people Google, they find you. Me personally, anytime I'm going to spend a large amount of money, I do my research and I start with Google. If I ever have a question about something, I Google it. Google is, I think, the #1 place you should focus your efforts when it comes to getting your services out there, and then you can use social media to complement that. Next point, it helps. So building up your SEO goes hand in hand with building up your domain ranking. So when you start your business, you have to establish a domain. The domain is basically your website address. That domain has to build up a history, basically. It's like kind of like a credit score, but for your website. And the better your SEO is, a lot of times the better your domain ranking is. So like when I first started my company, my domain ranking was a 1. Now it's a 14. And every time I check it, it seems to be going up and up and up because I'm doing all the necessary steps to build up my SEO. And it's taken a long time, like 5 years, but over time it's getting higher and higher and higher. And that is ultimately placing me higher and higher and higher on search results. It's also, your domain ranking is, let me tell you what they say it is. It's the measure of your website's authority and relevance. So, like I said, kind of like a credit score, but for a website. So yeah, that is what SEO is important for when it comes to photography businesses. There are so many resources online that you can find for photography specifically to build up your SEO, but I am going to touch on the most important one, in my opinion, that you should focus on for your website, and that is blogging. So I don't know if you've ever noticed, but if you look anything up, whether that be a DIY project or a recipe or just any kind of question, like you're like, how many turtles are there in the sea? Whatever. If you look it up, most of the time you're going to pull up a blog post or an article that you read through that answers your question. And that is because blog posts are where most people place their keywords to get you onto their website. And every time someone goes to your blog post, it tells Google, oh, this is a trusted business. People are going to this person's business to learn from them. And so Google will kind of like notate that on the back end somehow in their algorithm, and that's how you start to establish your SEO. So blog. I would say blog at least once a week, and you can blog about so many things as a photographer. The main thing that photographers blog about is their actual sessions, but when you're first starting out, you might not have sessions. So instead, you could blog about, hey guys, I'm starting a photography business in this city. That city is a keyword. And then let me backtrack a little bit. If you want to know what your search terms should be, the best way to go about that is to go on Google and search. Let's say you live in Austin, Texas, and you are a newborn photographer. I would just look up newborn photographers in Austin, Texas, and see what pops up on the first page. And there'll be different sections. There'll be like the main title of someone's website, and then there'll be like a little blurb underneath with various keywords. And I would read through all those keywords and see if you see a pattern, and then write them down. That is the free way to find search terms. There's also different services. I can link a couple below. Personally, I didn't use them. I actually hired a company to do some of my SEO for me that I wasn't able to do on my own, and they helped me figure out what my search terms would be with their own subscriptions to websites like the ones I'll link. So they can be very beneficial. They are a little bit expensive. So start with just Googling and writing down the search terms. They're also pretty obvious. So like if you were looking for a photographer in Austin, Texas, what would you search? And write those down. It could be in multiple different orders. It could be Austin, Texas, newborn photographer in Austin, Texas, baby portraits in Austin. There's all kinds of different combinations and synonyms for different words that you can use to place into your blogs so that people can find you. The only thing I will say about that is to be very careful about overusing keywords, because Google will recognize that as like spam. So it's called keyword stuffing. You don't want to use like, hi, I'm a Austin newborn photographer and I'm currently taking newborn photos of Austin residents. You don't want multiple. Google is very smart. So if you use it once, Google understands what search terms are important in that blog, because Google's established and it has all kinds of algorithms to figure that out. So I wouldn't worry too much about placing the keywords multiple times. Instead, I would try to get a variety of keywords in that blog. And you want your blogs, from what I hear, to be more than 500 words. I know that can be difficult to write, but I do think it's worth the time that you put into it. Moving on to some more specific things that you can do to improve the SEO of your photography website is, let me pull it up. Okay, so local citations. Local citations are so underrated. They are so important for anybody in a service-based industry, because anytime you make a local citation, keyword local, you are putting your actual location and business name so that Google, how do I explain this? So if you have a website and you have your address on it, Google sees that and they say, okay, this business is here. But if you have multiple local citations across the internet with your name and your location, Google starts to recognize like that you are an established business, and so it boosts your actual website ranking. And so local citations they're kind of weird. They're like they're all those search engines and directories that you've really never heard of, that you might venture onto a page every now and again. You're like, what is this page? It's got all kinds of ads everywhere and stuff like that. But because of the quantity of the local citations, they really boost your website and they're important to invest your time into. I will leave a link down below with different lists of local citations that you can build yourself. I will say that it is very time consuming. I would block off like a day or two of your time to really put a dent in the list of local citations that you should build. But like I said, very important. There are companies that you can hire. I actually did it at one point where I think I paid $75 for 75 local citations, and it took them about 2 weeks to do it for me. So there are resources like that, and I'll try to link those down below too. But I don't think it's necessary as long as you have the time to do it yourself, because it does not take a rocket scientist or whoever to do this. It is really just a copy-paste type thing. So you just copy your business name into the local citation and your address and phone number and your website and whatever other links that you want to include. But it is very important to be consistent. No typos. If you have two addresses and you like alternate addresses, that is bad. Pick one address and stick with it. Pick one business name and stick with it. You want it to be very consistent across the internet. And then anytime you have an address change, you want to make sure that you update that address across all of them, which is where hiring somebody can be beneficial, because once your company's established and you're making enough money that you can invest in something like that, it really does just make your life easier. So when you're building these, keep a running list of all the places that you listed your website, so that if you ever need to do maintenance on that, you have a a resource where you can just click on each one and quickly update them. So yes, that I would say is number one. Moving on, photos. So every time you have a photo on your website or on Google Business or different places like that, it's going to also put it in the Google search directory. So like if you know, when you look up a photo on Google, there's endless amounts of photos. And how does Google find those photos for you? It's all keywords. So the actual file name of your picture is very important. And so what I do is when I'm actually exporting my photos out of Lightroom, when I'm done editing them, I go in and make sure that the naming convention for each file includes keywords like where it was taken, what kind of session it was, that kind of thing, so that when I'm uploading those images to my website, those keywords are already there and I don't have to edit them. In the past, I had just like file name 24569, and then I'd have to delete it out and change the file name over and over again. There's also metadata within each photo where you can actually put an entire summary of what the picture is, and that would be a step up from just making sure the file name matches the photo. And so like you could put picture of a girl in a blue dress in a field in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then if somebody is ever searching for ideas on how to take photos for their senior year or anything like that, they might stumble upon your photo, click it, go to your website, and then boost your search ranking. So that is very important, especially because we're photographers and we have endless amounts of photos, and so it's a great way to get us on Google. Moving on. Page titles. Page titles, super important. Anytime you have a new page on your website, you want to make sure that you have H1, H2, and H3 text. That is, we're getting into some techie stuff here. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I'd rather make a separate video on this type of thing. But when you're, especially on Squarespace, I don't use other website building tools, but I have used Squarespace. And on Squarespace, you establish what your H1, H2, and H3 text is. That is your heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3. Heading 1 is going to be your biggest text and the title of your page. H2 might be some complementing information to your title, and then H3 would be a little bit less specific, or a little bit more specific and a little bit less important of a title. So you never want to have more than one H1 text per page, because that confuses Google and then they have no idea what that page is about, and oftentimes it'll make your ranking go down. So just keep that in mind when you're building out your pages, because I made the mistake of having 5 different sections, each one using H1 text, and then I had bad SEO, of course. So I'd say H1 is your title, and I would use H2 for each section. You can use H2 multiple times if you want to. Alrighty, moving on. Okay, everybody needs a Google Business profile. It's free to make, very easy to make. You do have to verify your address, so when you put it in, it's going to take a week or 2 for you to receive a code in the mail for you to verify your Google Business. But Google Business is, it is absolutely paramount that you have one, and that you're constantly updating it with pictures, with posts, with events, anything that is new for your business. You want to add it to Google Business. You want to share your review page where your clients can leave your review with them every time you have a new client, because the more reviews you have with Google, the higher you place on Google Maps and Google Search. And I think I'll make a separate video about that as well, because I think that one I should go more into. But for the purposes of this video, it's not really about SEO, it's just more about professionalism in general. Analyze your competition. That's a huge one. Kind of similar to what I was saying earlier, where you can search, and based on your search, you can kind of pick out keywords. You can also just see like what your competition is doing compared to you. You can go to their websites, see what they're blogging about, how their pages are set up and all that to help you get inspiration for your own SEO. Backlinks are another huge one. Backlinks are when other websites list your website on theirs. And so it kind of builds like a spider web in a way to your website, and it's another way to tell Google that, hey, this is an established business. Other businesses are talking about this business. A good way to go about doing that is you can just You can contact other businesses and ask them, hey, do you want to collaborate on a blog post where I make a blog post and I talk about the perks of your business, and then you make a blog post and talk about mine, and then that way we both have a backlink. You can also like enter into certain publications to see if they will include you in their article. So there's a lot of different ways to go about getting backlinks, but I think that is very important. I do think that Pinterest is considered a backlink. So anytime you create a pin on Pinterest and you put your website on the pin, it considers that a backlink. And so I think Pinterest is a really great tool to use, especially because we're photographers, so we have lots of photos. So you can just go and pin all your photos on Pinterest and then make sure you're putting keywords about that picture, so that then people can search you on Pinterest and find you, or search you on Google and find your pin. And that is it. That is my advice for building your own SEO. There are back-end things that you can do that I cannot teach because I am not in that industry, but you can hire people within the industry that can help do that for you. If you use Squarespace, there is a sister company to them, or they're affiliated to them in some way, called 99 Designs, and you can actually go in and look at different people to hire, and then hire somebody for your personal website's SEO. And then I'm sure there's other ways to find them, like Fiverr and things like that. So if you want to take it to the next level, if you've got the money to invest and you don't want to spend too much time trying to do it yourself, you could hire somebody as well. But thank you so much for listening. I hope this was helpful. I know it was a lot of information to process all at once, so feel free to rewind and pause and jot things down as often as you'd like. And I will be making another video soon with the next step in how to build your own photography business. Have a good one.